Hi, good morning to everyone. Welcome to Desktop Central Training Program. So today's training is about patch management. I would like to thank everyone for joining the webinar in your busy schedule. Before we proceed further, it would be great if you could comment in the chat section to know if you are able to view my presentation and also hear my voice. Let's wait till we get a confirmation from few folks. Thank you all for your confirmation. Let me introduce myself. My name is Sriram, and I'm associated with Desktop Central for past 6 years, and I'll be hosting this session for you. So let's take a look on the training schedule. It's a 7-week series, and we are in week 1. So we have completed the first schedule, which is by 6:30 a.m. GMT, and now we are in 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. All these sessions will be recorded and it will be available in the below mentioned website, which is www.desktopcentral.com/training.html. And all the registered participants will receive the recorded training video via an email as well. So before we start the training, I would like to share with you the agenda for the day. So first, we're going to see what is patch management and how it works in the overview, followed by the architecture. From my support experience, I will be sharing 4 scenarios which would comprehensively cover the entire patch automation process and its components. And next, we'll be seeing how to test and deploy the patches to the test and production environment. Deploying patches manually to multiple sites every month will be a tedious job for an administrator. Let's see how to overcome the situation using automate patch deployment. There might be some difficult situations where you need to install the critical patches immediately to the production environment. For an example, 0-day critical patches. We will see how to achieve this using the patch deployment technique. For better understanding, let me share with you some of the interesting scenarios which I came across while interacting with the customers. And at last, conclusion of the session with most frequently asked questions with answers. During the training session, if you come across any questions, feel free to use the chat option to chat with our expert team. We will collect all the questions raised during the session and they will also be published for the larger audience view. So let's move on to our first topic, which is supported operating system. Desktop Central supports patches for all 3 flavors of operating system, Windows, Mac, and Linux. In Windows, we support all operating systems starting from Windows XP till Windows 10. And when it comes to Linux, since Linux has many flavors of operating system, we support Ubuntu and Debian by now. And within 2018, first quarter, we will be extending our support for CentOS. With Desktop Central, we offer support for 950 plus application. And when it comes to third-party application, we have extended our support for 250 plus application, which is a huge list. So let's move on to the next topic, which is Desktop Central architecture. So here, we're going to see the components involved in Desktop Central architecture. So first, we're going to see about the server installation part. Desktop Central is an on-premises solution. Desktop Central server can be installed in your local network or demilitarized zone. I presume everybody knows about demilitarized zone. It is where you can place your server in a secured hosting so that the client machine can reach the server in a secure way. Let's see how to install the agents successfully in the client machine. Agents should be installed in order to manage the client machines when it comes to Desktop Central. In Desktop Central, we can manage desktop, laptop, server, and even surfaces can be managed. Agent installation can be done through multiple ways. If you are using Active Directory in Windows Network, you should be able to leverage that by deploying agents using the group policy. Or you can also push the agent to the client machines from the console, the automate agent push option, which is available. Or you can also use the typical way, which is the manual download, or using a script, you can deploy the agents to the production environment. So I'm going to take you back to the previous slide in order to explain more details about managing machines in wide area network. So let's see how to manage machines which are in wide area network using a distribution server. So what is a distribution server? How it exactly works? For example, if you have concerns with the bandwidth and if you have to manage more than 20 machines in a remote site, here is where the distribution server comes into picture. So when a patch or a software task is created, the machines which are located in the remote office will not reach the server to download the patches. Only the distribution server will reach the desktop central server and it downloads the patches and distribute to the machine which are located in the remote office. So using distribution server will help you to manage the bandwidth efficiently. Moving on to the next feature, which is roaming users. How roaming users can be effectively managed with Desktop Central. Roaming users are who move from one location to another, who can also be managed with Desktop Central. To achieve this, if you are managing Desktop Central server in LAN or in demilitarized zone, you can enable NAT and firewall, or you can utilize the forwarding server, which will help to communicate the agent securely. To give a brief note about forwarding server, I'm going to take you to another slide. So how a forwarding server works. If you wish to manage the roaming users securely, then you can utilize the forwarding server feature. So this forwarding server acts as a secured gateway between the roaming agents and the Desktop Central server. Any communication from the roaming agents to the Desktop Central server will be routed through the forwarding server. So this will help to communicate the agent securely. So we're going to move to the next important topic, which is managing machines in AWS or Azure. There might be multiple scenarios why you wish to install the server in cloud. If you manage more roaming users, having the server in cloud will be an advantage. So in this scenario, you can place the Desktop Central server in AWS or Azure. Cost-effective solution. If you're placing the device in cloud, you can avoid the hardware infrastructure and maintenance cost for infrastructure. If you are an MSP, then you can manage multiple machines using cloud. And moreover, if you have a distribution server for cloud in your network, which will contact the AWS or Azure instance, and your clients can be managed using that. Or you can also manage roaming users via your distribution server. If you host your application servers on cloud, they can also be managed directly from Azure or AWS network. Moreover, Desktop Central will be on cloud very soon, so where it can comprehensively manage all of these above mentioned features effectively. By now, we have released cloud for another ManageEngine product, which is Patch Manager Plus. So now we're going to move to the components. I'm going to give you a brief note about what are all the components involved in Desktop Central. So here you find 7 components, where out of 7, 4 are optional based on your license and your requirement, and you'll find 3 essential components. So by now, you should be clear about the distribution server, forwarding server, and I'm just going to give you a basic information about what a failover server is. Failover server brings in an additional server which actively monitors the primary server and takes over the operation when the primary server fails. So this feature helps you in eliminating the downtime in your business. So till now, what we have completed, if you guys have any questions, please use the chat option to chat with our expert team. So let's move on to the next topic, which is ports managed by Desktop Central. We would recommend you to open the ports shown here in order to manage specific features with Desktop Central. For example, agent server communication happens in port 8020, and server to agent notification happens in 8027 TCP. And also another feature, voice and video chat. One of the features associated with the product works in UDP 8443. What if a Windows firewall blocking the ports? What will exactly happen in this scenario? We will notify you in the Desktop Central home screen, and that can be added as an automatic exception. And what if the port is blocked on the Desktop Central server machine? For an example, agent and server communication happens securely on 8383 port. What happens if this port is blocked on the server machine? Any patch or software deployment task you push from the server will not reach the client machines. So in order to avoid this, we suggest you to open the ports which are managed by Desktop Central. To know more information about the ports, please visit the below mentioned website, which is www.desktopcentral.com/ports. So here comes the 90-minute refresh policy. Desktop Central architecture is scalable to manage different networks and even larger networks up to 20,000 machines. This is possible because of the refresh policy we use. Let me explicit this in simple terms. Desktop Central agent would be contacting the server at every 90 minutes. So this is called as an agent refresh cycle. This feature ensures that all computers in the network contact the server periodically. So what we are ensuring here, we are ensuring two important factors. Network is not choked by the agent communication, meaning bandwidth is not disturbed due to the agent-server communication. And the performance of the server is not affected at any time. Desktop Central Server has an intelligence to endure systematic, streamlined communication from all the agents at regular intervals. I can give you a better explanation for 90 minutes refresh policy. For an example, in a network of 90 computers, for each minute, one computer will reach out the Desktop Central server. And for 900 computers, for a minute, 10 computers will reach the Desktop Central server. What happens to a larger network? So a larger network like 9,000 machines, 100 machines will reach the Desktop Central server. So using this 90 minutes refresh policy feature, agents can communicate the server on a systematic basis. So let's move to the next topic, which is patch management architecture. When a patch is released by a vendor, it will be available in the vendor site. Our patch crawler team repeatedly probes the internet to draw the vulnerability patch information from the vendor site. Once the download is completed, the patches will be tested in our environment. So what exactly happens in this testing? So in this testing, it involves whether the patches can be successfully installed or not, and then there will be a compatibility check, and a checksum test will be done, and the applicability of the patches will be tested during this process. Then it will be published to the central patch repository. Desktop Central Server subscribes to central patch repository periodically to download the vulnerability database. Once this process is done, the client machines should be scanned in order to identify the missing patches. After identifying the missing patches, Desktop Central Server directly downloads the required patches from the vendor site. So this is a basic explanation about how patch management architecture works. I'll also share you more details in the coming slides. So let's move on to our objective now. To explain patch management module in a better way, I've taken an objective, which is setting up patch management. So here are the enterprise level best practices for setting up patch management. We can see how to scan the machines and test patches in non-production environment. Once the testing is done, let's see how to approve the tested patches. After approval, we can see how to deploy the patches to the production environment successfully. To make the deployment process much easier, let's have a look on how to create automate patch deployment task, and we'll also see how to deploy the patches on a periodic basis. At last, we'll have a look on creating reports. Understanding patch management. So what exactly happens when it comes to understanding patch management? To explain the objective in better manner, I've taken a scenario here. John and his team are managing over 1,000 computers in his network, which is spread across the globe, where he manages multiple remote offices in different locations like New York, London, Chicago. By now, his requirement is to test and deploy the patches which are released by last month to his entire network on a periodic basis. Once the deployment is done, John should share the report to Peter, who is his IT manager. So let's see how to John and team achieve this objective using Desktop Central. To explain this better, I'm going to take you to the console. So I'm going to show how this process works. For better understanding, I'm going to log in as John, the administrator. So this is how the console is going to look like once you have logged in. So the first step I'm going to perform here is to configure the proxy settings. So I've clicked on admin, and then under patch settings, I'll be finding the proxy settings. So I can choose the proxy settings here. Why the proxy settings need to be configured? The main reason for configuring the proxy server is because Desktop Central should contact the central patch repository in order to update the vulnerability database, as well as to download the patches from the vendor side. Proxy should be enabled. So here you can go ahead and choose the option which you wish to use for the proxy configuration. You can use direct connection to internet. If you wish to connect directly to internet without any proxy authentication, you can use this option. Or if you have a username or password, and if you wish to reach the internet through this username and password, then you can update these details over here. Also, kindly confirm that patchdb.manageengine.com site is open in your firewall in order to download the vulnerability database. So my next step is to configure the patch database settings. So what is the need to configure the patch database settings? So I can do this by clicking on admin, patch database settings, and you can choose a specific type of patches which you wish to manage, like operating system related patches or third-party patches. All the computers will be scanned to identify the missing patches based on the selection. For an example, if you are managing WSUS and you wish to only install the third-party patches through Desktop Central, in this case, you can only choose to install the patches related to third-party patches. However, based on my support experience, most of the customers will use all the options to ensure that the entire network is patched through Desktop Central and also to gain a single point of management. And moreover, you might wonder, what is this schedule patch database? As we have seen earlier, your Desktop Central server should reach the central patch repository in order to download the vulnerability database on a daily basis. So only when this happens, your Desktop Central server will know what are all the newly released patches available. So you can just go ahead and choose this option to automate this process. So you can enter a time. So here by 11 o'clock every day, I want the Desktop Central server to reach the central patch repository and download the vulnerability database automatically, which will help you to reduce a lot of work for the administrator. We have also provided another option to do this process manually. So I can click on patch management and you can click on update now. So where this will also update the vulnerability database manually. So if you guys have any questions till what we've completed now, you can very well use the chat option to chat with our expert team. So let's move on to the next important topic, which is agent installation. So while stepping into the agent installation, here we have a quick launch option. So I can also use that to reach the agent installation. So I'm going to click on computers. So before I install agents to my client machine, my first step is to add the domain credentials. For that, I'm going to click on add domain and enter the domain credentials over here. And you'll also find two network types. One is Active Directory and the other one is Workgroup. When it comes to Desktop Central, we support mixed network. Both Active Directory and Workgroup can be managed at the same time. So once I enter the domain credentials here, I can click on Add Domain. And then I can go ahead and select computers here. So where those machines will be listed here. So I can very well go ahead and click on Install Agent immediately. And when I click on Done, what exactly happens at the backend? We remotely connect to the client machine and copy the installables. And once it is done, the agent machine will automatically remote the installation. It will invoke the installation process. And once the deployment, agent deployment is done, we do have a pre-deployment or a post-deployment activity available here after the agent installation. So here under agent settings, you find an option called perform patch scanning. So using this option, once the agent is installed, those machines can be automatically scanned and the data will be posted to the server. So once this step is done, now we are gonna step into our first objective. So what is our first objective? Which is scanning all the machines to identify the missing patches. For that, I'm gonna click on patch management. So here under patch management, I'm gonna click on scan systems. I'll find two options here, which is scan systems and scan all. If I wish to scan only a specific machine, then I can go ahead and choose those machines and click on scan system. Or if I wish to scan all the machines in my network, I can just use this scan all option. What exactly happens when a scan process is initiated? When a scan is initiated in Desktop Central Server, a task, it will be created as a task. And once this task is created, the notification server, which you have seen earlier, will trigger the client machines to reach the server in order to pick up the task. So all the client machines will reach the Desktop Central Server and it will pick up the task and it will execute it in the client machine. So once the scanning process is done, it will post the data back to the server. So this data contains the missing patches information for those respective machines. Once this information is posted to the server, Desktop Central server will now publish those information under All Patches view. So here under All Patches view, you can find the details of the missing patches. And here I can very well go ahead and choose the patches and click on Install Patch because these are the patches which are missing for my entire environment. So I can very well go ahead and choose these patches and click on Install Patch, but that is not my objective. So my objective is to scan all the machines, identify the missing patches, and then test those missing patches in my pilot environment. And then only I should publish the patches to the production environment. Let's see how to achieve this using patch management. So for that, I'm going to take you to the approval settings. So what is approval settings? How it is going to help you to save your network? Imagine you're managing a banking application which is installed in your production environment. Installing the new patches to the production environment without testing might create issues like BSOD, blue screen of death, or it can unexpectedly corrupt the banking application. There are chances it can even reboot the machine. So this will be a very big downtime for your business. And in order to overcome this situation and to secure the network, you can utilize the test and approve feature. So here, once I click on modify, you'll find two options, which is automatically without testing. Another option is test and approve. So you can use this test and approve option, which is always suggested by our end. So I'm going to click on save. So once this process is done, now I'm going to create a new group for test and deploy. So I've selected add group, and the first option you'll find is platform, which is Windows and Mac. You might wonder why Linux is not a part of test group deployment. So Linux is in our roadmap, and that should be released within next month end. And the next option you find here is choose a custom group. So what is a custom group? How it exactly works? So to explain more about custom group, I'm going to take you to another page. Custom group is a unique feature in Desktop Central, which helps you to create a group for specific users and computers. So this group will help you to define the specific group of machines or users at the time of any frequent patch deployment or other requirements in Desktop Central. So here you can go ahead and create a group name, and then you can choose the patches. So you can choose the machines here, and you can add those machines, and you can click on create group. So once this is done, a custom group will be created. So I'm going to take you back to the previous screen. So now I'm going to choose the test group, which I have already created. And you will find the deployment options, severities, and applications, which we are going to choose. So here you find the security updates, non-security updates. Based on your requirement, you can actually go ahead and choose the updates. But when it comes to Desktop Central, we always suggest you to deploy all the newly released patches to the test environment. The reason why I tell this because in future, you might have a requirement or you might install a new application. So when you try to update that application, if the patches are not tested, it won't be that feasible for you to test the patches at the last time due to the time constraint. In this situation, it might be a higher risk for your production environment. To avoid that, it's always advisable to test all the patches which are released for your environment. And then during the automated patch deployment process, you can actually go ahead and restrict which patches should be deployed to your production environment. And if still you wish to include or exclude a specific application, those options are also available for you. So you can include or exclude a specific application. So let's see the next important thing, which is deployment settings. So we're going to see more information about the deployment settings in the coming slide. I'll just give you a brief information now. So in the deployment settings, you're going to choose the policy which you have created. So this policy helps to deploy the patches on the specified time. So you might have a time frame, so where the patches should get deployed only by this timing. You can very well go ahead and choose the policy as per your requirement. And the next one is the notification settings. So here you can update multiple email address as per your requirement. And once the deployment is done, you'll be receiving an email about the status of the task which you have created, whether the patches have been approved or deployed, what exactly happened to the patches. All these information will be sent as a summary. And at last, the approval mode for tested patches. So we have made the test and approve process to be automated. So there are two ways. One, you can either go with the approval mode, like you can manually go ahead and approve the patches, or you can automatically approve the patches. So here, using this option, you can automatically approve the patches after 2 days or 3 days of testing. So where within this 2 to 3 days, you will be getting a confirmation from the test users, and based on that, you can approve the patches. So now we have created a test group, and let's go ahead and see the status of the test group which we have created. So here we have created the test group, and this is the view, the summary view of the test group which we have created. So here you can find the details of the deployment policy and the patch criteria which we have chosen. All these information will be updated here. And also, to know more information about the patches which are installed and how many were successful and how many were failed, all these information can be viewed under patch view. So here it tells the information about the patches which are not approved. As I've told you earlier, you can also go ahead and approve the patches manually. You can just select the patches here and you can click on approved. So by this way, you can approve the patches manually. And if you have any failed patches while downloading the patches from the vendor site, if there is any failure, those information will be updated here with the remarks. So where that remarks will be an interlink for our knowledge base. So when you click on that, it will take you to that screen and it will show you the error message. This might happen because of a firewall block, or if that link was blocked by the vendor itself. So you'll also find an option in the test group to modify the group or the test policy which you have created. And if you wish to delete the test group, you can still go ahead and do it here. So as per my objective, I have scanned all the machines, identified the missing patches, and now I've successfully deployed the patches to my test environment. So my next objective is to deploy the tested patches to my production environment automatically using the automate patch deployment. And my major objective here is I should only deploy the patches which are released before 30 days, like before a month. So here, I'm going to choose the option schedule task. When you click on automate patch deployment, you can find the previous tasks which were created. So I'm clicking on the Windows operating system, and I'm creating a task for the Windows machines. So here, under deployment option, you will find 4 deployment policies. So my objective here is to scan all the machines, download the patches, and then deploy the patches automatically to the production environment. To achieve this, I'm going to use the 4th deployment option. And moreover, I'm going to choose the security, the severity updates over here. By here, I can actually specify which set of patches to be deployed to my production environment. So I'm going to choose the critical, important, moderate patches. And you might wonder, what is this rollup and cumulative updates? So you should have heard about this previously when using Desktop Central. Sometimes it might be very confusing how the cumulative and rollup works. When it comes to cumulative and Delta updates, it's only for Windows 10 machines. So when it comes to the cumulative update, it is a pack of all missing patches released for that specific month. For an example, if you have many missing patches for the month of January, updating the cumulative will be more than enough. So where it has all the missing patches information in it, and once you install that, it will take care of the other task and the missing patches. So you don't need to go ahead and install every patch here. And the same thing applies to the rollup also. And it can also choose include a specific or exclude a specific application. For an example, you don't want a specific Microsoft version like Windows 10 1709 to be installed in a machine. It can just go ahead and exclude only for this specific task, where this application will not be scanned and it will not be identified as missing. And here comes the next topic, which is delay deployment. So here is where I'm going to specify by which day the patches should get deployed. For an example, the patches which are released before 30 days, only I want those patches to get deployed to my production environment. So I can choose those details over here. And next comes to the deployment settings. So here I can see multiple deployment policies which were created by my team. So I'm going to choose one for my requirement. I've chosen the New York deployment policy, and I'm going to choose the New York over here under the target because I wish to deploy patches only to my New York site now. So I've chosen the New York site, and here comes the scheduler settings. So using the scheduler setting, I can actually schedule by when the patch task should be created and it should be initiated. So by this time, as per your requirement, you can put it on a weekly, monthly, or a daily basis. So I'm going to choose it on a daily basis here. And I'm going to click on schedule. And here comes the configure execution settings. What happens when a patch is getting deployed to the client environment? And there are a few scenarios where the deployment might fail because of the applicability issues, or if the patches are like not required for that machine. In this scenario, you can very well use this option to redeploy those patches on failed target machines automatically. So you don't need to go ahead and deploy the patches manually every time. You can just use this option to automatically deploy the patches on the failed targets. You'll also find options like when the patches should get deployed, either during the system startup or the refresh cycle. So you can choose as per your requirement. Moving on to the notification settings. So here you can update your email address. So once the deployment is done, email will be sent to multiple users. You can add multiple email address here. And once the deployment is done, the entire deployment summary will be sent as an email to your email address. So once this process is done, now we have created the automate patch deployment task. We're going to see the status of the task which we have created. For that, I'm going to click on automate patch deployment again. And I'm going to see the details of the task which I have created. So here comes the status of the task which I have created. So it gives you the information about the deployment policy and what exactly happened to that deployment and patch download summary. All these information can be viewed under summary. You might wonder why there is no deployment summary. There were no missing patches detected for the defined targets. based on the severities. As per my selection, there were no missing patches for my machines. And you can find the task scan summary, which is partially successful. Why it is partially successful? Let's go ahead and have a look on it. So here, this machine, which is up and running, which has been scanned successfully, which gives a remark of operation completed successful. What happened to these two machines? Why it is not scanned? So you can find an information here, yet to scan. If you want to know why these machines are not scanned, you can click on view details. Agent has not contacted the desktop central server to initiate the deployment. So here it gives us an information that the notification server for these machines are blocked. So either it should be blocked on the firewall end, so where it cannot notify the users, the client machine, to reach the desktop central server. So once the notification server is open and once the machines are on, those machines can reach the desktop central server for the new task. And moving on to the next option, which is modify task. If you wish to make any changes to the task which you have created, like you need to add a service pack for this deployment, or if you wish to make changes to the deployment policy, or if you want to add many more machines in this, you can still go ahead and do it under modify task. And if you wish to suspend a task, for an example, if you pushed a deployment to a wrong machine, then you can very well go ahead and suspend that task. As well as if you want the same configuration to be applied to another set of target, you can still go ahead and do that using automate patch deployment. And you might wonder, what is this system view and patch view? What information it is going to give you? System view gives a view based on the machines. So it will list out all the machines which are managed, and it will give you the missing and install patches machine-wise. Whereas in patch view, it gives the details about the all patches which are managed for this specific task. And for a single patch, there might be like multiple machines which requires that patch. So those information will be available in the patch view. So as per my objective, I've also successfully tested the patches in my production environment using automate patch deployment. Now, I'm going to take you to the presentation to provide some information about automatic patch deployment inside. So here, we're going to see how to manage multiple remote sites simultaneously. So as you've seen earlier, I manage my offices in different locations like Chicago, New York, and then in the local office also, I have many machines. So how to deploy patches to all my remote sites simultaneously? Using the automate patch deployment, it is very well possible. For example, if I create a task by now, so this task will be created in the desktop central server, and for every 90 minutes, all the client machines will reach the desktop central server one by one to pick up or to check for a new task. So by the first 90 minutes, all the client machine will reach the desktop central server and it will look for a new task. And then it will pick up the task which you have created and it will go ahead and scan all the machines. It will identify the missing patches and post the data back to the server. So by now, server will go ahead and download the patches which are required for my machines from the vendor directly. And once the download is done, by the next 90 minutes, all the client machines will reach the server again, and they will download the patches from the desktop central server, and it will be deployed on the client machine. Once the deployment is done, the agent machine will consolidate all the reports and they will share it to the desktop central server. So using this option, all the remote sites can be patched simultaneously. You might have a question where What if the client machine is down during the deployment? And what if the machine comes live by the next day? In this scenario, if the deployment policy is live till the next day, then any machine which comes in the deployment policy will pick up the task and then it will deploy the patches. So now I'm going to take you back to the console to explain information about deploying zero-day critical patches. So here under patch management, under all patches view, we're going to see how to deploy the patches which are released by today. You may have heard of Meltdown and Spectre patches, the two new hardware bugs which are capable of exposing any sensitive data like passwords, photos, emails, and even critical documents can be accessed and stolen. So before the machines are getting affected, John and his team are going to identify the Meltdown and Spectre patches and deploy it to the production environment. And we're going to see how to achieve this by creating filters. So I've already created a filter for Meltdown and Spectre patches. And I'm going to choose the patches here, and I'm going to install the patches. Before that, I would like to show the information about the patch view, which we have seen earlier. So this is how the patch view is going to look like. It has the patch details and the missing system information. If you want to know which machine is this, you can just click on this, and it shows you the machine information here. And moreover, under the manual deployment process, I'll also find options to add or delete columns as per my requirement. For example, if I need to add like patch name, patch type, and other columns, I can very well go ahead and choose it and click on save. And when it comes to the reporting part, if you want to share the reports, like the missing patches reports of Meltdown and Spectre, you can just click here and this can be fetched as a report. Hope you can see the report here. So this is how the report is going to look like. And once this part is done, we'll also find the install patches view and applicable patches view. So here you find the patches which are installed by machine-wise, and applicable patches concludes of both missing and installed patches. So moving on to the missing patches view, I'm going to choose the filter again, and I'm going to select the patch and click on install patch now. So here we have chosen the patches which we are going to deploy to the machines immediately. And you'll also find another option, which is scheduler settings. So what is the scheduler settings? How it is going to help you? So here you'll find the date and time. There might be some situations. Let's go with an example of a Google Chrome update. So Google Chrome update, which you wish to update only by next month, first week by 10 a.m. And you don't want this configuration to get applied after a specific time. So in that situation, you can very well go ahead and choose that time also. So after first week, this configuration, the Google Chrome update, should not get deployed to the production environment. In that situation, you can actually go ahead and use this scheduler option. And moving on to the next one, which is deployment setting, which we have seen earlier. And here comes the target. One best thing when it comes to the manual deployment is you don't need to choose the target here. When you choose the missing patches, it automatically chooses the required machines. The targeted machines will be automatically chosen here. And you guys are sure about the execution status and how it works, as well as the enable notification option. So I'm going to click on deploy immediately now. You might wonder, what is this deploy and deploy immediately? What is the difference between these two buttons? For example, deploy immediately is an on-demand task. When you are managing machines which are less than 50, then you can go ahead and use the deploy immediately option, where the patches will be immediately pushed to the client machines. When it comes to the deploy option, It works based on the 90 minutes refresh cycle, which we have seen earlier. So you can very well go ahead and click on deploy immediately now. And we have created the deployment task for Meltdown and Spectre patches. Let's go ahead and check the status of the task which we have created. Here, Meltdown and Spectre patch. Oh. So here you can find the information that it is retry. The status of this task is retry in progress. Why it is in retry progress? To know that, I'm going to click on this execution summary and retry in progress. So it gives us the detail why the deployment is failed. A prerequisite for an install could not be satisfied. What is this error message? We have already created a forum post as well as created a knowledge base regarding this error message. I'm going to take you to that page now. So here it gives you an update what exactly the error is and how it can be rectified. So this error can be rectified by updating your antivirus. If you have an antivirus enabled in your machine, we would recommend you to kindly update the antivirus so where this issue should be rectified. For an instance, you have now updated the antivirus. So how to deploy these patches again on these machine? For that, you need to click on Save as New. So using this option, you can very well go ahead and deploy the same patches on the failed target machine. So you don't need to go ahead, choose the machine again, patch again, and install it. Instead of that, you can just go to the task which you've created, and then you can deploy the patches again to that machine. And if you really ask me, what is going to be the success rate when it is redeployed, not only for the Meltdown Inspector, for any patches which you redeploy, we would always suggest you with test and approve feature. So before deploying any patches to the production environment, it is always advisable to test the patches in your pilot environment. So once it is tested in your pilot environment, the success rate will be more high and the failure percentage will be very, very less in this situation. So here we have completed the manual deployment for Meltdown and Spectre patches. I would like to give a recap here on what we have completed till now. So as per my objective, we have scanned all the machine, identified the missing patches, deployed the missing patches to my test environment, and then I've also deployed those patches to my production environment. And once the deployment is done, I've seen how to deploy the patches, the 0-day critical patches to my production environment. And my next objective is to fetch the reports and share it with my IT manager, who's Peter. So for that, I'm going to click on reports. When it comes to the reporting part, it's very easy to generate reports in Desktop Central. So I can just click on schedule reports, add schedule report, and I'm going to click on patch reports here. And it shows the installed patch option. So if you wish to choose a specific column, if you want to get a report based on a specific information, you can very well choose it. By now, my requirement is to get the reports which are installed by today. So I'm going to choose the deploy date as today, and I'm going to click on submit. So based on my selection, the reports will be generated. And you can choose the format on which you will need the report, either PDF or XLSX or CSV. You can choose one as per your requirement. And the same thing applies even to the delivery format, whether you want this as an attachment or you want this to be sent as a zip file because the report has more MB, like it's a bit big, so it cannot be sent as an attachment. In that situation, you can very well use the zip file, or you can use the third option. So using this, we'll publish the reports on Desktop Central server, and you'll just receive the link to your email address. So using that, you can access these reports easily. You can enter multiple email address to whichever email address you want the reports to be sent. You can update those information here. And you can also create up a scheduler. How frequently you need this report to be sent to your email address. You can choose those details over here. Apart from this, there are other ways to fetch the report easily. For an example, under All Patches view, here you can just go ahead and click and then fetch a report. Or if you want a report based on the deployment date, even you can use a filter and then you can use the deployed date and you can choose it as today and you can click on apply. So you can use this option to actually get these information as a report, even this is possible. So now we're going to move to the next topic, which is system health policy. So why system health policy is required? What is the need of having a system health policy? So to quickly understand the network health, how many machines has more number of critical patches and how vulnerable they are. To know all this information, system health policy will help you to identify the highly vulnerable machines. And how is this useful in a practical way for the auditing purpose? For an example, if you need a report of machines which are highly vulnerable, you can just go to all system and you can fetch the information as a report. So here it gives you these information which are highly vulnerable. So you can use this or you can fetch this as a report. So if you want to know the healthy system reports, you can just click on this and the healthy system reports will be generated and you can share it with your team members. So using this, they can identify the machines and they can deploy the patches immediately to those machines. So now I'm going to take you to the presentation in order to show how to deploy the patches during non-production hours. So here, my objective is to deploy the patches between 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. So 6 to 9 will be the non-production hours in my office. So I need to go ahead and deploy the patches only during this specific time, like 6 to 9. And while leaving the office, most of the users will turn off their machines. So Desktop Central should go ahead and turn on the machine and then deploy the patches to those machines. And when it comes to the reboot part, I want all my machines to get rebooted except the servers. Let's see how we can achieve this objective using Desktop Central deployment policy. So under patch management, deployment policy, I'm going to show you the policy which I've created already, 0-day patch policy which I've created. I'm going to edit this. So here, initiate the deployment at system startup or refresh cycle, or either of these, whichever happens earlier. So you can use any one of this option to actually go ahead and choose when the patches should get deployed. And you can choose the preferred week for deployment. As per my objective, this deployment should happen on a daily basis. And I've chosen the deployment window from 6 till 9 o'clock. And here comes the Wake on LAN feature. While leaving the office, users will turn off their machines. So where Desktop Central can actually go ahead and turn on those machines and deploy the patches. How it is possible? So once you create a task, your Desktop Central server will check for any availability machine in that subnet. And then we'll be sending magic packets to that subnet. And through that, those machines can be turned on and it can be deployed. And you'll also find the next one, which is download patches during subsequent refresh cycle. In case if you have a deployment window from 6 o'clock till 7:30, which is a short time. In this situation, if you're going to download the patches during the deployment won't be successful. So to avoid that, you can utilize this feature to download the patches during the scanning process itself. So while scanning the machines itself, Desktop Central Server immediately downloads the patches from the vendor side. And next one comes with the user notification. So using this option, you can notify the users about deployment. So here you can update the details as well as you can put up a notification timeout. If you want to convey any message to the users who are in the location, you can just update these details over here, as well as you can provide access to users to skip the deployment. Even that option is available for you. Or if you wish to uncheck or if you don't want this option to be provided, you can very well take out this. And the next policy, important thing when it comes to Desktop Central is reboot policy here. So here you're going to choose what should happen after the deployment, whether to reboot, shut down, or do not reboot or shut down. My requirement is only to reboot the machines, and I'm excluding the servers from reboot. I do have like two reboot methods available. One is like force reboot or postpone reboot. I can choose one as per my requirement. I can also provide access to my users to postpone the reboot option. So to provide more information about the reboot, how it exactly looks like, I'm going to take you to the presentation. So when you provide a skip reboot option to the user, when you provide access to the user to skip the reboot, this is how it's going to look like. So they can choose one as per their requirement, and they can click on restart later. If there is no access provided, this is how the message will be shown to the user, where they can either click on restart now, or they can just wait for 5 minutes. It will automatically restart the machines. So we are done with the patch management module. So if you have any questions related to the topic which we have completed, I would request you to kindly use the chat option to speak with our chat team. And moreover, I would like to give a short recap on what we have done till now. So we have scanned all the machines to identify the missing patches, and then we have deployed those patches to our test environment. From there, I've pushed the patches to the production environment using automate patch deployment. And once that process is done, we have also seen how to deploy the zero-day critical patches. And once that is done, we have seen how to fetch the reports and manage system health policy, as well as to deploy the patches during non-production hours. So let's go with the scenarios and solutions here. I only want to manage patches for third-party non-MS application. Can this be done? Yes, this is possible with Desktop Central. So I can go to Admin, Patch Database Settings, and you can go ahead and choose the updates which you wish to manage. So if you wish to manage only third-party updates, you can very well go ahead and choose only the third-party updates over here. So as per that, only the third-party applications will be scanned and it can be managed. I completely rely on Desktop Central for patch management of both operating system and third-party application. Is there a way to disable automatic updates of third-party application like Adobe, Java, etc.? When it comes to Desktop Central, yes, this is very well possible. So here, once you click on patch management, you'll find disable automatic updates. So you'll find multiple templates available here. So you can choose one as per your requirement. If you wish to disable the automatic updates for Windows or Adobe or Java, all these templates will be available here. So using this, you can go ahead and disable the automatic updates. You can choose the target machine to which you wish to disable the automatic updates, and you can click on deploy immediately. So this configuration will make changes and it will disable the automatic updates. I have some legacy application for a business that only run an older Java version. How can I disable the Java updates? So in this situation, there are like two solutions for this. One is selective exclusion and permanent exclusion. So I'm going to show you how this exactly works. Let's go with the selective exclusion. Under patch management, while creating an automatic patch deployment, I can just go ahead and exclude the application which I don't wish to install. So here I can search by name, and then you can choose the application and you can click on OK. So where this application will be excluded from getting updated. And the permanent way of doing this is using the decline patch feature option. So you can just click on this and you can choose by family. First, you can choose the target machines, like if you want this to happen only to a specific group or all computers, you can choose those information here, and you can choose by family. For example, if you wish to decline the entire Adobe version, you can just choose it, or you can also go with the versions which are available. Our business applications misbehave occasionally, and I suspect that recent patch deployment could be the cause. What should I do? In this situation, we have also provided an option to uninstall the patches. So where you can go to all patches view and you can choose the install patches, and you can choose the specific patch which you wish to uninstall, and you can click on deploy immediately. So this process will help to uninstall the patch from the client machine. I want to push antivirus definition updates to computers. Can this be done? Yes, this is possible. So here under patch management, automatic patch deployment, you find the schedule antivirus task. So these are the updates which we are supporting by now in Desktop Central. If you have any other antivirus software which you're managing, which we don't provide support by now, I would request you to kindly update that in this link, so where we can check for the feasibility and we can help you accordingly. I don't want to deploy the new patches immediately to the entire network. I would like to automate the deployment in stages based on departments. Yes, this is possible in automate patch deployment. So you can go here and you can choose the scan system download option, and you can use this delay deployment in order to achieve this requirement. So you can choose like 10 days. For example, patches which are released before 10 days will be deployed as per the scheduler you're going to mention here. And you can create another task and you can set it up for 20 days. So based on this, on different schedules, and you can also choose different target locations here. So based on these information, the patches will be deployed on a periodic basis. While deploying the patches, I came across below errors on multiple clients. How to get this fixed? Office update error, unknown error code, fatal error during installation. I would like to give you a few more details over here when it comes to the Office update error. So when you have an Office application installed in your machine and it's been like uninstalled or it might not be uninstalled properly, when you're trying to do an update in this situation, this error might occur. So what you'll be doing is when it comes to these type of errors, we would always recommend you to kindly share the screenshot with the agent logs to analyze the issue. So where we can go ahead and analyze this issue, and we'll update you what needs to be done on your end to fix this problem. We have a lot of business critical servers running Linux and many users running Mac. How to ensure that these computers or servers are patched up to date? So this is very simple. So this can be done under admin, agent settings. So first, we need to ensure that a Mac agent is installed on the machine. So at least one machine should have the Mac agent installed in it. And then we can go ahead and choose the patches under patch database settings. So here, once the agent is installed, and then only you can find this information, which will be highlighted. So you can choose this information here. As per this, on a schedule, you can use either the automated patch deployment or manual deployment to deploy the patches as per your requirement. So as we are done with the patch management module in Desktop Central, here are the other ManageEngine products we deal with patch management, which is ManageEngine Desktop Central MSP and ManageEngine Patch Manager Plus, a dedicated software for patching purpose, and it goes to Patch Connect Plus. If you are planning to manage only third-party patches, then you can use Patch Connect Plus software. So let's move on to the questions. What is the average turnaround for patches to be updated by Desktop Central? When a patch is released by a vendor, from 4 hours, we'll be trying to deliver the patches to the central patch repository. So within 4 hours of time, we will start to release the patches. And a non-security update will be available within 24 hours of time. How much disk space does a distribution server need to have to catch patches? It again depends on the variants which you are managing under the distribution server. For example, if you have 50 machines with different operating systems, then definitely more number of updates will be available for those machines. So whereas all the 50 machines under the same operating system, like Windows 10 or only Windows 7, in that situation, it's going to be only a limited number of patches because the same patch can be utilized for all the machines. How can I receive patch updates based on the OS? For an example, Windows 7 should get only Windows patches applicable to Windows 7, and Windows 10 should receive only Windows 10 patches. When it comes to Desktop Central, both server and agent has the intelligence to download only the required patches. So when a scan task is initiated, agent will only post the details required for that machine. And when it comes to the download process, it only downloads the required patches for that specific machine. I have configured patch cleanup policy to remove old patches. What will happen when a machine needs an older patch? How does it work? In this situation, your Desktop Central server will again download the patches from the vendor side. I could see the difference in patches discovered by Desktop Central against WSUS or Windows Update. Why? In this situation, there could be a few scenarios. For example, when it comes to Desktop Central, we support both Microsoft and third-party application. So where it might be like more number of patches will be shown missing in our end. So whereas with Windows Update, they only show the Windows patches. And when it comes to Windows updates, it can also find the driver updates, which will be mentioned there. Whereas with Desktop Central, by now, we do not support driver updates. And there are other scenarios where that patch might not be required for that machine. For an example, superseded patches will not be shown in Desktop Central, whereas those information will be shown in Windows Update. This is the reason you might see some discrepancy in patches. So here comes the end of the session. Thank you so much for joining the webinar in your busy schedule. I really appreciate your patience and time. Once we are done with the webinar, you'll be receiving an email so where you can use that to rate us on a scale of 1 to 5, where 5 is the topmost. You can also share your feedback if you want us to update some more important information in the webinar. And you can also spread a word in social media, so where you can also use Facebook or Twitter to update or share a word about the training which we are done. And the next training schedule is software deployment, which will happen on January 31st by 6:30 a.m. GMT and 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you again for joining the webinar. You have a wonderful day.